your imaginary axis, and the poles is marked by X and zeros are marked by small circle. Step 2, you are going to determine the root locus on the real axis. So choose a test point. To the right of the test point, you see how many number of poles and zeros you have it. So if you are going to have your number of poles and zeros to be an odd number, then it is a part of the root locus. And if you are going to have it as an even number, then it is not going to be a part of the root locus. Now going on to your step 3, determine the angles of the asymptote and the meeting point on the real axis, which you call it as your centroid point. See, the angle of asymptote is found out by using formula plus or minus 180 2q plus 1 divided by n minus 1. And the centroid point is nothing but it is given by sum of poles minus sum of 0 divided by n minus 1. Now step 5, you are going to find out the break-in and breakaway point. The break-in and breakaway point are being founded out taking your characteristic equation of your closed loop transfer function. From your characteristic equation, get your kth equation, and after getting the kth equation, differentiate your kth equation with respect to S and equate it to 0. Now just you can make this point as a hint point. Your breakaway point always lies between two poles and break-in point always lies between two zeros. Now step 5, you are going to find out the angle of departure and angle of arrival. So angle of departure from complex pole A is given by 180 minus the sum of the angles of the vector from complex poles to pole plus the sum of the angles of the vector from the complex poles to your zeros. Similarly, how to find out the angle of arrival is given by the sum of the angles of the vector from complex zeros to 0 plus the sum of the angles of the vector from complex zeros to your poles. Now step 7, you're going to find out the crossing point on the imaginary axis. So for that, take your characteristic equation, substitute your characteristic equation, substitute S is equal to j omega. After substituting S is equal to j omega, separate your real part and imaginary part and equate it to 0. You will be able to find out the real part equated to 0 will give you your gain k value, and imaginary part when equated to 0 will give you your crossing point on the imaginary axis. Last step is nothing but you're going to find out the open loop gain at any point. For example, for any point of S is equal to S A suffix A, which is nothing but S suffix A will give you your dominant pole. So K is nothing but it is given by the product of the length of the vector from the open loop poles to the point S suffix K divided by the product of the length of the vector from the open loop zeros to this point S suffix A. So with this, we will be able to sketch the root locus. And on the screen, I have shown you the typical sketches of root locus. So your root locus can be of this between these typical sketches. The first typical sketch, you can see you have an angle of departure. The second typical sketch, you have a breakaway point with the angle of arrival. The third typical sketch, you have a breakaway point and you have a centroid and an asymptote. And the fourth typical sketch is going to show you that it has only poles and zeros and break-in and breakaway point. So these are the typical sketches of the root locus. So root locus typical sketches, what you're going to get it will be within this typical sketches. So please make a note of this typical sketches. Now moving on to the problem now. Example 1. A unity feedback control system has an open loop transfer function. G of S is equal to K divided by S into S square plus 4S plus 13. So for this thing, you need to sketch your root locus. So step 1, what you're going to do is, you're going to locate the poles and zeros. So for locating the poles and zeros for the G of S and H of S, so H of S value here they've given you as a unity feedback system. So H of S value is going to be equal to 1. So the first step 1 to locate the poles and zeros of G of S and H of S. So when I'm going to locate it, so take your denominator term. When you denominator term equate it to 0 will give you your number of poles, and the numerator term when equated to 0 will give you your number of zeros. So what is the denominator term? You have it S into S square plus 4S plus 30. So the denominator term, I'm going to equate it to 0. So you can see it s into s square plus 4s plus 13. When I'm going to equate it to 0, I'm getting the pole value as 0, minus 2, plus or minus 3j. Now when I'm going to consider my numerator, on my numerator, you can see it over here. I don't have any term rather than a k term. K is nothing but a gain term. So I don't have any other numerator term, hence therefore the number of zeros is going to be 0. So for this given g of s, h of s, I have only poles, which is nothing but 0, minus 2, plus or minus 3.3, plus or minus 3j. So now what you're going to do it, you're going to take a normal graph sheet, and onto the normal graph sheet, you're going to mark it on the graph sheet, the poles and zeros. So the poles is going to be marked by using your cross symbol. So here we have a pole at 0, and then we have a pole at minus 2 plus 3j, and then we have a pole at minus 2 and minus 3j. Okay. So now on the screen you can see I have taken a suitable x-axis and y-axis. Remember, your x-axis should be your real axis, y-axis should be imaginary axis. So after taking a suitable scale, what are the poles I had? My first pole is 0. I marked by using a cross sign. The next pole I have it as minus 2 plus 3j, and then minus 2 minus 3j. So I have been marked it everything on my graph sheet. So this is my step 1. My step 2 is you're going to find out the root locus on your real axis. So according to your step 2, now before that, going on to your step 2, you need to see to it how many number of root locus you will be getting for this particular g of s. So how many number of poles and zeros we got it? We got 4 poles, and we have got only 4 poles. Hence, therefore, according to this problem, g of s, h of s, k divided by s into s square plus 4s plus 13, you will be getting 4 root locus here. So now one root locus we are going to locate it by using our step 2. So step 2, I'm going to find out the root locus on the real axis. So what you're going to do with by finding for sketching your root locus on the real axis over here is, now choose a test point. A test point is going to be your own imaginary point. After choosing the test point, to the right of the test point, you find out how many number of poles and zeros you have it. So now I'm just going, what are the poles we had on the real axis? It was 0, and rather than that, you have minus 2 plus 3j and minus 2 minus 3j. So now we have a glance at the graph now. So now I have only one pole on the real axis, which is nothing but at 0. Hence, therefore, to the right of the test point, wherever I'm going to choose my test point on the negative real axis, to the right of the test point, I have only one pole. Hence, therefore, the entire negative real axis will be a part of your root locus. So again, I'll repeat it. You have only one pole at the origin. To the right of the test point, you see how many number of poles and zeros you have. You have only one pole. Hence, therefore, to the right of the test point, the number of poles and zeros is 1. Hence, therefore, the entire negative real axis will be a part of your root locus. So, according to your step 2, you can see there is only one pole on the real axis at origin. Choose any test point on the negative real axis. Therefore, the total number of real poles and zeros is 1. Hence, therefore, the entire negative real axis will be a part of the root locus, and hence it is being shown by a bold line on your graph sheet. Now, coming on to your step 3. Your step 3, you're going to find out the angle of the asymptote and centroid. So the angle of the asymptote is given by 180 minus plus or minus 180 into 2q plus 1 divided by n minus m. So n value is nothing but 3, which is nothing but denotes your number of poles, and m value is 0. We don't have ZF zeros at all. So let me find out the angle of this asymptote for n is equal to 3 and m equal to 0. So let me take the q values varied from 0, 1, 2, 3 till n minus m. So till n minus m, I can take my q value up to 3. So when q is equal to 0, the angles I'm getting plus or minus 60 degree. When q is equal to 1, I'm getting my angle plus or minus 180 degree. And when q is equal to 2, the angles I'm getting plus or minus 300, which I can write it as minus plus of 60 degree, because when I'm going to take one complete rotation over there, it is 360. So this 300 can be written in anti-clockwise direction as minus plus 60 degree. Similarly, the next, when q is equal to 3, I got my angle to be equal to 420. So this plus or minus 420 in anti-clockwise direction, I can write it as plus or minus 60 degree, because 420 minus 360, you'll be getting it as 60 degree. So again, I can write it as plus or minus 60 degree. So why I'm doing this modification is I'm seeing to it, I'm just getting my angles alternatively, so that it will be easy for me to sketch my angle of your asymptote. Now, how to draw the angle of the asymptote? The asymptotes are drawn by using your centroid point. So you can see the typical rough sketch on the screen also. How to find out the centroid point? The centroid point is given by number of poles minus sum of poles minus sum of zeros divided by n minus n. So what are the poles we had? 0, minus 2 plus 3j and minus 2 minus 3j, and sum of zeros we don't have it at all, divided by n denotes your number of poles, which is 4, and m denotes the number of zeros, which is 0. Hence, therefore, the centroid point I got it as minus 1.33. So now take your graph sheet and mark minus 1.33 on your graph, and after marking it the centroid point, from the centroid point, keep your protractor and mark the angles of asymptote. What are the angles of asymptote? We got it plus or minus 60 degree, and then we got plus or minus 180 degree, and then we got minus plus 60 degree and plus or minus 60 degree. So mark the angles of the asymptotes on your graph sheet. Now coming on to your step 4, you are going to find out the breakaway and break-in point. Now we'll see how to find out the break-in and breakaway point. So breakaway point always exits between two poles on your real axis, and break-in point exits between two zeros on your real axis. So to find the break-in and breakaway point, as I told you in the step-by-step procedure, you need to find out the open loop transfer function, C of S by R of S. So the open loop transfer function, C of S by R of S, you're going to find out. And after finding out the closed loop transfer function, get the kth equation. After finding out the kth equation, differentiate your kth equation with respect to S and equate it to 0. So those points will give you your break-in and a breakaway. Whether it is a break-in or whether it is a breakaway, you are going to decide it based upon those points are going to come between two poles or between two zeros. So now let us have a glimpse on it on the screen over there. So here you can see it. I have taken a closed loop transfer function. The closed loop transfer function is given by C of S by R of S is given by G of S divided by 1 plus G of S. So G of S value is nothing but it's already given over there. K divided by S into S square plus 4S plus 30 divided by R of S value, which is given by 1 plus G of S. So let me just substitute it and get me the closed loop transfer function now. So after solving it, your closed loop transfer function, you're getting it as K divided by S into S square plus 4S plus 13. So now, after getting your closed loop transfer function, your closed loop transfer function is given by K divided by S into S square plus 4S plus 13 plus K. So in your closed loop transfer function, the denominator polynomial will give you your characteristic equation. Now take the denominator polynomial. This is your characteristic equation. In your characteristic equation, find your kth equation. After finding your kth equation, differentiate your k with respect to s and you equate it to 0. So when I'm going to differentiate my k with respect to s and equate it to 0, I'm going to get my s value to be equal to minus 1.33 plus or minus 1.6j. Now I need to check whether this is going to be a break-in or breakaway point, or otherwise do we have the existence of break-in or breakaway point. We have to check it. So first find out the closed loop transfer function. After finding out the closed loop transfer function, take the denominator polynomial, and the denominator polynomial will give you your characteristic equation. Take your characteristic equation, substitute it. Your characteristic equation is equated to 0. In your from your characteristic equation, get the kth equation, differentiate your kth equation with respect to s and equate it to 0. So after doing it, you will be able to get your s value. So s value, I've got it as minus 1.33 plus or minus j 1.6. So now this point we need to again check it out in the kth equation to see whether these point is going to be a break points or not. So take this s value. What is s value? We got two values. We got one is minus 1.3 plus j 1.6 minus j 1.6. Take it and whether my k value is real and positive. So if your k value is real and positive, then that particular point will be a part of your root locus. But here you can see when I'm going to substitute s is equal to minus 1.33 plus or minus j 1.6 in the kth equation, I can find out my k value is not real and it is coming it as negative. Hence, therefore, for this problem, we don't have a break-in and we don't have a breakaway point. So break-in and breakaway point is very simple. What we are going to find out the closed loop transfer function, C of s by R of s. So from the closed loop transfer function, you see to you take your denominator polynomial and you equate it to 0. So when I'm going to take the denominator polynomial and equate it to 0, you're going to take it as dk by ds is equal to minus of 3s square plus 8s plus 30. Yes, I've differentiated it with respect to s, and after differentiating it, I'm just substituting dk by ds equal to 0 and get me the s point. The s points can be a break-in or breakaway point. But before that, we need to check whether we have a break-in or breakaway. So for that, what you do will take your s point and substitute it in your kth equation and see whether it is been coming it as positive and real. But now for this, according to this problem, my k for this kth equation, for this k value, that is when s is equal to minus 1.33 plus or minus j 1.6, the value of k is not real and positive. Hence, therefore, the value of k for s is equal to minus 1.33 plus 1.6j are not real and positive. Hence, you don't have a break-in and breakaway point. If suppose if my k by s value which have been substituted in the kth equation, I got my k value to be positive because k is nothing but your gain parameter. Your gain parameter should be positive. If you have got this gain parameter as positive, then you can consider that point. But in our case, when s is equal to minus 1.33 plus or minus j 1.6, when I'm going to substitute this value in the kth equation, my k value for both my values of s is negative. Hence, therefore, I don't have a breakaway and break-in point. Then step 5, you're going to find out the angle of departure and angle of arrival. So when you will be having an angle of departure, if you are going to have a complex pole, you have an angle of departure. If you are going to have complex zeros, you will be having a angle of arrival. So let me find out for this problem, you can see it. Look at the first step. What are the poles we have got it? Poles are 0, -2 plus 3j, and -2 minus 3j. So here you can see it. We have got complex poles. And what about zeros over here? Zeros, we didn't get it at all, right? So hence, therefore, we have a complex pole. Hence, it is necessity for us to find out the angle of departure. Now, how to find out the angle of departure? You have taken a complex pole A. Look at the figure over there at complex pole A. What you do with, just draw a vector line on the real axis, that is on to the poles and zeros on the real axis. After drawing the vector line, mark the angles as θ1, θ2 and θ3. Hence, therefore, here from this, my θ1 can be written as tan inverse of A by B, which is nothing but my y coordinate value 3 divided by my x coordinate value 2. Similarly, when I want to find out the angle of departure at my pole A, you can write it as 180 minus θ1 plus θ2. So what was your θ1? θ1 is given by 180 minus tan inverse of A by tan inverse of my A divided by my B value, right? So A value is nothing but your or a y coordinate value, and B value is nothing but a x coordinate value. So we have found out θ1 to be equal to 123.7 degree and θ2 to be equal to 90 degree. Hence, therefore, the angle of departure at complex pole A is given by plus 33.7 degree. Similarly, the angle of departure at pole A asterisk is given by minus, it's given by 90 degree. Hence, therefore, the angle of departure at complex pole A, which is nothing but plus 33.7 degree, we have calculated. Now, similarly, what you do with, what will be the angle of departure at the pole A asterisk, which is nothing but the negative value of the angle of departure, what we got it at pole A. So at pole A, angle of departure, we got it as 33.7 degree. So at A asterisk, the angle of departure will be minus 33.7 degree. So remember, angle of departure exists only when you're going to have complex pole. If you have complex zero, then you have to find out your angle of arrival. Now coming on to your step 6, now we are going to find out the crossing point on the imaginary axis. So before going to your step 6, what you do with, you have been, according to step 1, we have marked the origin, we have marked the poles by using x sign 0, -2 plus 3j and -2 minus 3j. Then according to our step 2, we have chosen a test point. To the right of the test point, how many number of odd number of poles and zeros we have checked it. We have only one pole at the origin, since therefore the negative real axis will be a part of the root locus. Now from my step 3, I have found out the angle of departure and at step 3, I have found out the meeting point of the asymptote and the angles of the asymptote. So the meeting point of the asymptote is nothing but your centroid point, which is given by S is equal to minus 1.33, and the angle of asymptotes, I've got it as plus or minus 60 degree, plus or minus 180 degree. So plus or minus 180 degree will lie on the x-axis and y-axis. So plus or minus 60 degree, and you have seen it on the screen. Plus or minus 300, I have converted as minus plus 60 degree. Plus or minus 420, I have converted as plus or minus 60 degree. Such a way, the angles have been repeated with respect to each other. Then the next step, I have found out so what I have done it on my graph sheet, I have taken a centroid point. On the centroid point, I marked the angle and I have been drawn by using a dotted line. Now after that, the next step is you need to find out the angle of departure and the angle of arrival. But before that, you need to see to that whether you are going to have a break-in and breakaway point. Since I have a complex pole, I have the existence of since I have a complex poles, I will be having an existence of angle of departure. Angle of arrival does not exist. Why? Because I don't have zeros at all. So you can see it, how to find out the angle of departure. I have shown for you in this sketch. So it is nothing but the formula is given by 180 minus tan inverse of the sum of the angles of the vector from poles to pole, the sum of the angles of the vector from the poles, complex poles to 0. So mark the angles or label the angle as theta 1, theta 2 and theta 3 and find out the angle of departure at pole A. Similarly, the same way, we are going to find out the angle of departure at pole A asterisk, which is nothing but the negative of this value. Similarly, the same case, we need to find out the break-in and breakaway point to draw the asymptote. So find out your closed loop transfer function. In your closed loop transfer function, take your denominator polynomial, which will give you a characteristic equation. From your characteristic equation, get me your kth equation, differentiate your kth equation with respect to s and equate it to 0, and the s points you're going to get it can be a break-in or breakaway point, but this s points you take and substitute it in your k equation and see whether the gain k is positive and whether the gain k is positive and real. Only if it is positive and real, you can consider that particular s point as your break-in or breakaway. So now what you do is you plot it on the graph sheet. After plotting it on the graph sheet, see to that where this point is coming. Whether this point is coming between two poles, then you call that point as breakaway. And if the points is going to come between two zeros, then you call it as your break-in point. Now the last step over here is we need to find out the crossing point on the imaginary axis. So how to find out the crossing point on the imaginary axis is you take your characteristic equation. In your characteristic equation, substitute s is equal to j omega. After substituting s is equal to j omega, equate your real part and imaginary part to be 0. So here on the screen, I have shown my imaginary part to be equated to 0. So what are my imaginary parts I have it? So you can see the characteristic equation is given by s cube plus 4s square plus 13s plus k. So how I got my characteristic equation, which is nothing but the denominator polynomial of my closed loop transfer function will give me my characteristic equation. So now take your characteristic equation, equating your imaginary part, you're getting my omega value to be equal to plus or minus 3.6. So imaginary part, I can say it as plus or minus 3.6j. And the real part, when I equate it to 0, I'm getting minus 4 omega square plus k. So what is your omega square value? You have got it. Omega square value here is 13. So take the 13 and substitute it. Hence k value, gain k value, we have got it as 15. So the crossing point on the root locus, we have got it as plus or minus 3.6j with the gain k value to be equal to 52. Now we need to draw the root locus over there. So how many number of root locus we should get it according to this problem? We have got 3 poles and we don't have zeros at all. So you should get 3 root locus. One root locus starts from the origin and extends till the infinity. The remaining 2 root locus starts with an angle of departure. We have found out the angle of departure at the complex pole as minus 33 degree and plus 33.7 degree. So from the complex poles A, I have just drawn the root locus touching the crossing point on the imaginary axis at plus or minus 3.6j, and it is being drawn parallel to the asymptote extending up to infinity. That's what I have been shown you on the screen over there. The root locus has 3 branches. One branch starts at the pole at origin and travels through the negative real axis to meet the 0 at infinity. The other 2 root locus branch starts at the complex poles with the angle of departure plus or minus 33.7 degree, crosses the imaginary axis at plus or minus 3.6j and travels parallel to the asymptote to meet the 0 at infinity. So now with this, you might have gotten an idea how to draw the root locus. So from the root locus, what you can see it over here, my gain k value can be varied from 0 to infinity. Now, according to this problem, what was my g of s? G of s, the problem given here is k divided by s into s square plus 4s plus 13. So for this g of s open loop transfer function, my gain k value is, I've got it as 52. and I have been sketched the root locus path also. First root locus starts from origin and extends till the infinity. The remaining two root locus starts from the angle of departure plus or minus 33.7 degree, and it is being touching the imaginary point it is touching the imaginary axis at the imaginary point plus or minus 3.8 and travels parallel to the asymptote to meet the zero at infinity. So number of root locus, what I've got it is 3 is going to be equal to the number of poles what we have got it for the given g of s and h of s. So this way you can verify your root locus sketch, and the another way, as I told you, your root locus sketch will be within the typical sketches what I have been highlighted for you already on the PPT. So when you have been drawn this root locus sketch, see to your sketch is coming within the typical sketches what I have given. So in this way, you can just cross verify your root locus sketch also. So with this, I try to end my session now. So with this thing, we have been got an idea what do you mean by a root locus and what are the steps to be followed for sketching your root locus. And one problem has been the root locus sketch has been explained for you with an example problem so that you will be having an overall view about this topic root locus, which is a very important and powerful tool for doing your stability analysis for a given open loop transfer function g of s and h of s. So I would like to thank you dear students for attending and listening to my class very patiently, and I would like to acknowledge myself and I would like to thank our Chancellor ma'am